Today, we are going to be talking all about mistakes that we made as wedding photographers and wedding videographers.
Because they are different mistakes, that's for sure. Each one comes with their own set of challenges. And a lot of the mistakes we made was just we did them and then we learned from them afterwards.
And I feel like it's almost a rite of passage, right? That you have to sadly figure out these things as you go, especially if there really is no school for what we do, right? Like it's not like you can go to school to become a wedding photographer.
Yeah, there's like photography school, but that only really teaches you the basics.
Yeah, not like how to use your camera, you know?
Or pack extra batteries, or have a second camera, or make sure that you don't go from cold temperature to warm temperature and your lens fogs up and then there's an important event happening and whoa, that's a mistake.
I'm sure every single photographer has a story about things that they did, whether they'd like to admit them publicly or not. However, it is how we all learn and how we get better, and hopefully you don't repeat some of the mistakes that we did, because you're going to learn from us. We want you to learn so that you don't make the same mistakes that we did, because at the end of the day, it's worth making the mistake, but it is taught us so much by having these mistakes happen. And we've realized that there are just sometimes non-negotiables when it comes to certain things, because we know what the repercussions are. If we didn't know what they were, then we would just have kept doing them, if that makes sense.
Well, that's why I call them life lessons, because not only in photography, videography, but sometimes you make mistakes in life. And that's really the only way that you're going to remember not to make it again, is because you deal with the consequences that come with that mistake. For example, forgetting to hit record on your recorder.
There was an epic garter toss retrieval that we were capturing this year, and I was laughing so incredibly hard that I actually thought to myself, like, did I take enough photos of this? Because I was laughing so much. I did, but that was my first thought, is like, oh my gosh, did I like keep taking photos because I was just like laughing so incredibly hard at what he was doing.
That's definitely one of the things that sometimes I forget too as well, is when you're connecting with your couple, you're having a moment together, and it would be great to have a photo of that, but you're in the moment, so it's really hard to multitask. And I think that's a big part of being a wedding photographer, is that you have to be able to talk and take photos at the same time. But when I shoot photo, it doesn't come as natural to me to be able to pose them, give them direction, still have, that chatting, a conversation, and take photos at the same time, and take good photos at the same time.
That's why I am just so skilled, because I do it all.
And that just comes with experience. I don't think that's something that you can just come out of the gate and have that skill.
No, you have to learn it, and learn it hard. Like, you have to do 250 engagement sessions, and you have to do 250 weddings to be able to really just continue a conversation about something, meanwhile being like, okay, now look here, isn't that so funny what they did? Okay, now look over here. Like, literally that's what it sounds like when I'm talking to people, is I feel like I'm in two different worlds almost. Personality, chatting, clicking, changing settings, all the things, and then, telling them what to do, right, on top of that. So I feel that people don't understand how much is happening until they've experienced it on their wedding day. That's just from their side of it, right? Like, we've had it where a couple of our couples have been like so exhausted at the end of their wedding night, and we just happened to be there because we stayed to party with them, and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so exhausted. And all I could think is that we do this every weekend. I mean, we don't stay and party till the end, but like, we're there from,
We could.
But I mean, like, we are there all day, and we do this all the time, where we have to guide people and talk to people and run around and do this and do that and do this, and like run around like our chickens with our head cut off. And we do that every single weekend.
You just get conditioned being in this, and because we've just done it for so long now that it's second nature to us. But there's no amount of YouTube videos you can watch, or even watching or listening to podcasts about people making mistakes, and it might be in the back of your mind that I heard about this and so I should do it this way, or I should bring X amount of gear, or I should do this. But it's really when it hits you and you come home and you look at the footage, you look at the audio, you look at the photos, and your heart just drops when there's this one part that you either forgot or you didn't get it very clearly. You just missed the first kiss because your flash was charging during that time, and because you didn't change your battery soon enough, or whatever it is. There's all these little moments and things that can go wrong on a wedding day. It's a live event, so you really need a contingency plan on a lot of the different things that you need to do, or else it could bite you in the butt.
Yeah, second shooters have saved me a few times, that's for sure.
And having a second shooter, also part of the experience. You know, it's
It
if
can
you
be a pro and a con.
right.
But I've had lots of pros with a second shooter where I didn't get a shot, but they did, you know? And yeah, so some of the mistakes. Let's start with some of our.
Yeah, we're just gonna start with the fun mistakes. Were there any?
No, but when you talked about, you know, that feeling that that happens, there's also something where that's out of our control, right? Like, we've also had our stuff stolen. Like, that was completely out of our control, and we still felt completely terrible about that. There's nothing you can really do about it, right? Or like a card malfunctions, right? And like, even though we had a dual card slot, the card that we were using just didn't work, if that makes sense. There's all kinds of things that happen. So in having a dual card slot is so important, so that you're not losing anything.
Yeah, or not relying on technology to do the work for you.
Right? Because it can happen to anyone. Even the most amazing photographers in the world will have had mistakes. Like, let's just put that out there. The most amazing videographers in the world have all had mistakes happen to them.
But I think that's what caused them to become some of the best, because they've learned from their mistakes through their journey.
I guess I just want people to understand that that's just normal, right? Like, when you're hiring a wedding photographer or videographer, you kind of want them to have some experience, in the sense of like, they've learned some lessons. They know how important it is because they've made some mistakes and they're never going to do them again, or try their absolute best to make sure it never happens again.
Yeah, and that's what sometimes sets us apart from maybe people that don't have as much experience and are lower priced, and then what happens is they get their photos back, the clients, and then they complain that something is missing, or the files are not what they expected them to be. It's because that photographer probably made some mistakes during the day, and they're still learning, they're still growing, so you get what you pay for.
Yeah, so instead of the mistakes happening to you, you can hire somebody who hopefully won't make any mistakes. But I mean, there's no guarantee, right? Like, I think at the end of the day, we're human, right? It's not that we want any of these things to happen, but it just sometimes happens. Even with all of the precautions that we have in place, things can still go wrong. So it's just unavoidable.
I think back to when we first started, and we really just were booking people, did the wedding, and then that was pretty much the end of it once we delivered the photos. And we realized that creating a full experience from start to finish is much more rewarding for us and the client as well. We got more referrals. They felt like they were more important to us, because that's one of the things that when you have 50 to 60 clients in a year, they all want to feel like their wedding is really important to you. But in reality, it's hard to put all of your eggs in one basket when you're dealing with lots of clients. And I think that kind of happens to a lot of different companies, especially when you're shelling out lots of money to do a service like this, is everyone wants to know that they're just as important as all the other clients, and making them feel that way goes a long way.
We've invested a lot of time into creating that experience, and just being in customer service before all of this, I understand how important it is to be prepared for things. So I kind of we put ourselves in the client's shoes, and we sort of built a system. And we're very clear with clients that we have an automated system that is there to help us make the experience easier for them by sending out automated emails with tips and tricks, or automatic emails to book in appointments with us based on certain timing for their wedding day, right? It's about making sure that they felt like they've heard from us. I can remember when I very first started taking photos at weddings, I had a bride tell me that her sister had hired a wedding photographer and basically hired them, didn't hear from them until literally like a week before their wedding, where they threw together a timeline and just felt like it was very unorganized, not really the experience that they wanted. And one of the most important pictures to her was to get a picture of her with her mom. I mean, it's a pretty standard thing. And she didn't have a single photo of her and her mom together on her wedding day. Little things like that are what keep me up at night and like keep me thinking, these are some of the things. And I'm not perfect, right? Like, it's not that I get every single photo. I can't promise that I'm going to do that, but I can hopefully create an experience that my couples understand that I am trying my very best to give them all of that. If I miss something, again, I feel terrible, and humanity factor here, but they know that I've tried because I've put in all of that effort beforehand, versus this other client who didn't hear from them till the week of the wedding, felt like they weren't connected. That's just not sort of how our couples feel going into the wedding day.
I think the pre-planning to the wedding that we've put together really makes a difference on the wedding day, so that things like this don't happen. Where we have a comprehensive photo list of the family photos, of inspiration shots, whatever it is that the couple wants, and we really put that together in a package and discuss it with our team before the wedding day, which is not something that every photographer does, and it's not something that we did our whole career. I remember some days when you're first pulling me into weddings as a second shooter, I didn't even know the couple's name sometimes as we were going, because we were so new. We didn't know how important it was to know everyone's names and the parents' names, the bridal party, and now we make sure to gather all that information because it makes a huge difference through the whole experience when you feel like you're already part of the family when you arrive.
Another lesson that we've learned is to price ourselves in a way that is profitable and not price ourselves too cheap or the reverse, too expensive. And I feel like that's something that a lot of people don't talk about. But when I first started offering wedding photography, I originally priced myself very high, even though I didn't necessarily have the experience to back it up, because I thought I had enough experience, because I had been doing so many portraits of families and babies, and I had done so much, training that way. I've also had second shot a whole bunch and been to these really gorgeous, amazing weddings. However, it wasn't translating to a portfolio that was reflective of the pricing that I was using. Now, this is when I first started. Obviously, things have changed a lot since then because I've been able to build an amazing portfolio. I don't know if it was just the time, but that was just the standard, is to price yourselves a little bit higher. I felt like that was a very big discussion in the photography world that I was in at the time. All of the different big people out there were like, you need to price yourself high, and like you need to, what you're worth, and include prints, but upsell, and anyways. And what was happening is people that had portfolios, or specifically, I want to be very specific here, is that people had photos at certain venues that I didn't have. So even though my photos were great, everything was good composition, I did all of the right things, I just didn't have all of the pieces of it, right? Even though I was second shooting, sometimes I would second shoot, but I wouldn't even be there for the bridal portraits, right? So I would only get like groom prep and like reception and like a ceremony. And so it wasn't really stuff that I could showcase as like, this is my amazing work, And I feel like that was something that we sort of struggled with, and maybe even still have difficulties in figuring out what is the best pricing. And I think that's ever evolving. I'm sure most photographers hate talking about how to price themselves because it always feels like impossible to know what is right. But I feel like we've kind of found what the minimum is for us to kind of get out of bed, if that makes sense, in the morning.
Yeah, I think pricing yourself obviously matters, how much profit you come after your expenses, especially if you're outsourcing anything your second shooters, your outsourcing editing, the cost of your gear, the gas to get there, parking, all of that stuff comes into play when you're pricing yourself. And a lot of it also has to do with experience. When you were talking about the first time that you kind of overpriced yourself, and I remember having that discussion back in the day, and I remember specifically you told me, well, I'm trying to price myself to what I think I'm worth. I don't want to undervalue myself and book smaller weddings, but I think we saw the flip side because we had some competition in the area that priced their sell, like, let's say we were at 4,000. I don't remember exactly what the numbers were. We were about 4,000 and they were like 2,500 or 3,000. I remember they booked twice as many weddings. Maybe in the end their profit was about the same, but what was really valuable for them is they got double the experience of shooting weddings. They also shot at more venues than us that year, and they gave a good experience to their couples, which means that more people were out there referring them. So you can't really discount that part of it. It's not, in the end, what's going to get me more money. Is you have to think about all the other variables that are valuable in pricing yourself. And that's one of my biggest takeaways from the pricing, especially if you're a new photographer or a new vendor, is don't feel like you have to overprice yourself because you think you're really worth it, because you might be worth that. But if you don't have the preferred vendor list at venues, or if you're not good with planners, and we've worked our way up to be at that level, and I think that's why we can price ourselves kind of in the higher echelon of where we are. But I think when you're first starting out, having the experience and having more people to book you and all of that becomes so much more valuable. And then you can raise it up year after year once you have that network of people that can really boost you.
We've never been shy about saying that we've done stuff for free. And I'm sure there is a ton of photographers out there who have done it for free. But I feel like what we've tried to be conscious of when we're doing anything for free is that what can people do that, again, outside of like the money factor here, what can they do to help us boost to the next level? And some of the stuff that we've done for free, we've been very strategic in making sure that we've come into it saying like, okay, if we're going to do this for free, we want to get this in return. So for us, it's always been Google reviews. Google reviews, we have a lot of reviews, which is amazing, but it's not obviously from all the free stuff we've done. There's lots of people on there who've paid us and they've given us reviews because we do ask for them. Another important thing to do. However, what we found is that by having them do a review for us, or reiterating to them that they should recommend us, or choosing a location based on the fact that like we chose that wedding specifically because they were working with, say, a planner, or they were doing it at a wedding venue that we hadn't shot at before. And so we were very tactical on making sure that we were choosing a spot that would not only help build the portfolio. So again, if somebody said, oh, I'm getting married at this venue, you can say, oh, cool, here you go. Here's our work at that venue. Even specifically right now, we've shot at one venue so much that if they ask me, I ask them what date they're getting married, I can literally send them a gallery from pretty much around the same time period that they got married at, because we've shot there so many times. So it goes a long way being able to share that with them, because they can go, oh wow, like that's exactly what it's gonna look like pretty much on my wedding day. And the review is also great because it just sort of validates that we've shot there and that the couple was happy with our service. And then the last thing is building relationship with vendors, right? So we went and shot these things for free for a planner. So now not only does that planner look amazing because she was able to get them free video per se, or extra free photos or whatever it is for their wedding, it's also helped out all the other vendors because we've also been able to make content for them for that as well. So we've also built relationships where it's like we went and shot that wedding for free, but now we've made content for that planner, we've made content for that florist, we've made content for perhaps that DJ, for the venue, and it's like we've got all of these pieces now that are in our sort of toolkit to help us go to that next level. I'm not saying that you have to do it for free, but I really felt that that is what has catapulted us into the next level. It's not like we planned to do all this free stuff in January for like a September wedding. Most of the time this was happening like the month of the wedding.
Yeah, you have to make sure that it's not going to conflict with possible business.
Yeah.
And you don't want to commit to something too early.
Yeah.
But on that point as well, is when you're looking to make content for planners, venues, and different things, is you can get them to kind of stage. What we usually do is have the planner move chairs or fix plates and do kind of some headshots of them working. It's not just shots that they can use of the decor because they designed the decor, but include them in some photos. And same with venues or teams that are there. Do a new group photo for their staff while you're there, or talk to them. It kind of opens the door to the communication between you and these vendors, and then you can just enhance that by offering more services on top of it.
Yeah, and I mean, this is what we did, and we still do today. Like, we don't do it as much. We're not doing it quite as much as we once did, but we still do it and offer it to the venues, especially, or vendors that we've got a great relationship with, because we know that not only do we need to kind of keep that relationship going, we want to be front and center for them at all times. We don't want to just do that one time and then be like, okay, set for life, because there's always going to be somebody else that's coming up behind you who's just as eager, right? So you kind of have to keep going with that. You want to make sure that you're also just very conscious of the fact that they're always needing new content and things like that as well. So try to be there, try to be that person for them, so that there's no doubt in their mind that they think of you whenever they think of photos and videos.
Yeah, not only do you do it to start yourself and really bring yourself to the next level, but I don't think we'll ever feel like we're above doing something for free, especially to the people we love, because it always returns. And not only just does it return in one, it returns in multiplications.
And we're not even like saying like, oh, we're going to do this and you're going to give us this. Like, I don't think we ever did that, other than when we like shot for a couple specifically and asked for a Google review.
Yeah.
And that was literally all we asked for.
I mean, I think that's pretty fair. They get wedding photos and we get a couple paragraphs of review, and that takes them 5 minutes to write.
Yeah, essentially.
8 hours of our time for 5 minutes of yours.
That's literally what we asked for. One of the big mistakes I think that we made as well in the beginning was not having like a solid contract.
Yeah, we used a Google template of some kind and just figured it out a little bit, made it acceptable, and then just used it for a while.
It's not that we've ever we've never been taken to court, knock on wood, or had anything like that. But one of the things that I think the big C word taught us was that it was important for us to invest in making sure that we had something that was written by a professional. And so looking back, we got by not having one. But I do feel like it's there to protect you, right? All of these mistakes that we've talked about, right? It's like memory cards failing, or missing an important moment, or stuff getting stolen, like all these types of things. These mistakes are just things that happen, and there's not really a lot of control over when they happen to you. So having a contract in place is there to protect you and to protect the client, in the sense that, you know, if they've paid a certain amount of money and then all of a sudden 2 months before their wedding they want to just cancel it, and you've held the date for 6 months or a year at this point, and you've turned down tons of other business, like, the reason we have these contracts in place is because there's no way that I'm going to book another wedding 2 months out. I mean, very unlikely. Yeah. And so I feel like contracts are a good thing to have. It also just shows the level of professionalism. Like, let's just put that out there. I think that photographers get a bad rap because they're not very professional. They're like...
Because anyone can pick up a camera and take a photo.
Anyone can pick up a camera and take a photo. And I think that one of the big things that makes us stand out is that we do have, like, honestly, our shit together. And that goes a long way, right? If you don't have like a system in place to know, like, if you've double booked yourself on a wedding day, or like if you don't have a contract with somebody so they're bugging you for photos after a week, even though in your head it's going to take 8 weeks, but you don't have a contract. Like, the reason why they're there is to just make it very clear on what the expectation is. And it's not that when I meet with somebody that I sit there and read through my contract with them. No, like, I don't need to sit there and read it. it's your job. When I send it to you, I ask you to read it. I want you to feel like you understand what's going on. And so I think one of the mistakes we made is just not having one sooner. And I realize now that how important it is, because it just makes things very clear and straightforward.
Yeah, I think some notable things to put in a contract for a wedding vendor is what you're going to deliver and how long it's going to take to deliver. Now, obviously, we don't put exactly how long. Let's say in our minds, it's going to take us about 8 weeks. Be safe and, put that 12-week, 16-week, whatever it is that you can be comfortable enough if you get busy in the season to still deliver on time. Because there's nothing worse than when there's a week left into your deadline and they're asking you where it is and you're still swamped with other stuff and then you're just rushing through it. And the quality of the product is going to go down, and your relationship with this person is probably going to suffer a little bit too, because you waited to the last minute, or what they think is the last minute, just because your contract said so.
Yeah, I feel like also when you're meeting with people, when I'm talking to someone who's getting married in May, I tell them that, like, most likely I'm going to get their photos back pretty quickly, right? Like, unless life happens, and I'm very honest with that. Like, we have 3 kids. We're 2 busy adults, and things happen, right? So, like, our contract is there because life happens. Also, things like I don't put a certain number of images that a couple will get on their day because I don't know, honestly. I can estimate how many they're going to get based on just, like, past weddings, but there's a lot of factors that go into how many final images they're going to get, because sometimes there's just not a lot happening. And so I feel like there's important things to put in there are how many hours you're going to be there, the location of where it's going to be, and if you go over the time, how much money it's going to cost, right? Those are important things. If they want you to stay an extra hour, how much is that going to cost them? And other things like, what if something goes wrong, right? Like things that are out of your control. Yeah. So there's things like that that are there to protect us, but also it just tells the clients very clear, this is what to expect, right? And if you don't uphold to that, like, I think it's not that people are unreasonable, it's just that they want to feel like you're the professional in this situation. And I think that's where a contract comes in so handy, is having something that's professionally done that literally outlines your relationship with them, and that's it.
True. The contract lays out the expectations, and the expectations are really clear, which makes you look even better, right? I know that, was it through COVID that we had it reassessed by a lawyer, because the force majeure clause, which I don't believe had before.
Yeah, we did, but it wasn't
professionally written. And now we've definitely revamped it in the sense of figuring out what is a force majeure, how do we deal with it, what happens if you move your date, what happens if you cancel, all of that is laid out. And then another clause that we have in there that I think most people do is that you can't hire another photographer if you hire us for your wedding. A lot of people have that, but now it's kind of getting in this gray area with the content creator stuff. Are they considered a photographer, videographer? What if the venue or the DJ hires their own things? Because your client is the one who signs your contract, what if another vendor brings a videographer there to cover their stuff? I mean, they didn't sign a contract with you, so how does that fall? So all of that really needs to be aired out so that there's no conflict on the wedding day and everyone knows and they understand the rules that you're playing the game by, right?
True. So at least they can talk about it. A mistake that we made, especially in the beginning, was not having a shot list. And what I mean by that is not just a shot list of the things that you're naturally going to capture on a wedding day, but specifically family photos or specific photos that you really, really want to have that are important to you.
Like if there's robes in the morning and they all have an embroidered name on it, a lot of little details that we can miss if we're not told about it, which then when we're told about it translates and it goes into the shot list.
Exactly.
But we didn't always have one.
No. To me, a shot list just makes it very clear, again, setting that expectation of what we need to get. Do I guarantee that I get everything on the shot list? No. Because there's no way. Maybe sometimes I get every single thing and even more than that, right? Like you have to think like this shot list is like a small portion of what I actually capture. However, it does allow for me to make sure that if the client came back and said, well, you missed this one thing, but it wasn't on the shot list, I can say, well, I'm sorry, it wasn't there.
It really lays out the expectations that protects both the client and us. And I think when you said we may not get everything on the shot list, and that's not just because we skipped it or just forgot to look at the list, is usually something goes late, we run out of time, and we have a discussion with our client on the day of, hey, XYZ.
You wanted to get this.
Yeah, you wanted to get shots of this, but we're running late. Let's shorten that list. Let's skip one or two of these things so that we can get what's important to you. And sometimes they come back to us and say, no, everything's important. It doesn't matter what's happening later on. We're just gonna run late and just make sure that we get everything. And that's just good communication throughout the day.
Sometimes it happens where it's like, okay, I'm supposed to get a photo with my brother, but like he's supposed to do a reveal with me or something, but then like brother never shows up. And they're calling and they're trying to figure it out, but then we have to go for a first look or whatever it is. But those are out of my control, right? Like brother doesn't show up, like you can't fault me for that. But yeah, I feel like it just makes it easier. I think if it's super, super important to you that you get this one thing, then absolutely just relay that to your person. Like, we're gonna make sure we get it. Like, if you just keep saying, oh my gosh, this is so important to me, I have to get it. I'm dreaming about this moment. Like, this is the most important moment. Like, I really want a shot from, like, a popular one is like in a church. If there's an upstairs level, they love to get that shot with the dress trailing behind as they're walking down the aisle. Like, that seems to be a really amazing, like, cool opportunity that we hear about. But like, reality is if there's only one shooter, like I can't be up there. You know what I mean? So like those conversations are worth having because if there's only one person capturing the wedding, I can't be up there if I'm trying to capture that moment, unless you literally pause the wedding so I can run to the back of the church, go upstairs, take a couple photos while you wait there, wait for me to run all the way back down and go to the front to capture it, right? Like,
and the moral of that story is it's doable, but it takes planning. Exactly.
So the shot list also enables us to plan for certain moments as well, which gives us more time in the timeline, et cetera, right? So it all kind of plays a role into it, right? Especially we even say to couples, we have like a shot list that we've kind of put together, and they just have to click all the ones that they want to have captured. Well, if they click every single thing on that list, and they've only booked us for 8 hours, well, then we maybe have to have a conversation about what that looks like, because they can't click every single thing and expect to kind of get that all done in 8 hours successfully.
And that's why we have them fill out the questionnaires before the timeline meeting, and then we review all that, and that usually translates into we either need to add more time, cut the list, or rearrange something so that we can make your dreams come true. You get married, the worst possible feeling is that you move the photos and videos to the computer, and then when you go to look at them later, some of it's missing, or it's not even there at all.
Over the years, that has probably been the number one stressor for us. We've come up with a lot of systems to avoid that happening, like not deleting memory cards until we've, gone through everything.
Using a cloud system like Dropbox.
Also backing it up onto a hard drive as soon as we get home and onto the cloud, and then double checking everything, and then, deleting the memory cards at that point. It gets to a point, especially I think when we're just capturing the amount of weddings that we're doing, and in such a short amount of time, especially if we're doing like a double header weekend or a triple header, that's where it can kind of get complicated, right? Because you think you have everything and then you don't. So biggest recommendation is definitely invest in lots of memory cards, more than you think, and try to go through everything before deleting it. That has been our number one lesson, I think. And even then, it doesn't always guarantee that you have everything. I think that's the hardest part. Yeah.
Managing those cards can be really troublesome sometimes. And we talk about this specific problem because we've experienced it both on the photo side and the video side, where it just is going to happen to you sometime in your career. You may have the best systems in place, but it always finds a way. All it takes is for it to just not quite get to the end or whatever it is. You have to have systems in place. Like Bethany said, keep the card that you use for the wedding on the side until you've gone through the whole wedding, and then be able to delete it off that. I think that's probably the best way to do it.
But then it's hard because it's like, technically I've dual recorded, but I'm only keeping one card, not the two, right? So if something happens to that one card, like say that
The
card.
safest would be to keep the 2, but I mean, SD cards are expensive.
I know. But anyways, what I'm trying to say is that what we try to do anyways is that we come home, we put everything on the computer. Before I delete that card or anything, I go through the entire thing and make sure I have everything. I sometimes don't delete it until like the very end, if I can, obviously. But I hate deleting things because I'm so nervous about it. If it were up to me, I would have 100 cards probably.
The card would just go into a little sleeve and it would just be that weddings card forever.
Yeah, that's it. I would never, I would never have a new card. Just a new card for every wedding.
A new card, yeah, and you just give it to the couple.
Just $300 every single time.
$300, yeah. The CF Express, oh boy.
Right.
Those are expensive cards.
And that's each. So
Just roll that into your price and then charge it to your clients.
you get all the raw. We hope that you learned some things from our mistakes.
Now go out there and make your own mistakes.
Or don't, Try to have a better system. And if you have questions about how we do things, please feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to share any of this information with you because trust me when I say we've been there and done that.
And hopefully we won't do it again.
Hopefully never again.